January 1st, 1987 marks the day the government of Botswana took over the operation of 641 kilometers of railway line that ran through Botswana from the National Railways of Zimbabwe. Today, the Botswana railway system consists of 888 kilometers of track. But since the discontinuation in 2009 of the passenger train and the subsequent closure of the little economic hubs that train stations all along the line had become, the operations of the Botswana Railways have become quite obscure and ambiguous to the average Botswana. How is the company faring 30 years from inception? Are they fully harnessing the economic potential of rail? What services and opportunities are available that Botswana should be aware of and capitalizing on? These are some of the questions we are sure you, the viewer, have often asked yourself to our guest this evening, the CEO of Botswana Railways, Dominic Ntwagai. Welcome back to First Issues. As we mentioned in the introduction, most Botswana are completely oblivious as to the operations of Botswana Railways, especially since the discontinuation of the passenger train in 2009. But our guest this evening, Dominic Ntwagai, shares some services that Botswana should really be aware of.
I think generally, people, they don't know much about railways and they're worried. What actually are we doing at railways? So that's the perception that is out there. Because people normally thought that the greatest business of railways was actually conveying passengers. But that is not actually the major business. There's quite a lot of other business that are there. Like one of the major things that we do, major, that's basically the anchor point, is that we transport bulk commodities. Whether it's cement, whether it's fuel, whether it's coal, the majority of these things are actually on rail. That's why you don't see most of them on the road. Furthermore, we've got other sectors like container business. We actually haul trains. Like each one of our trains will have maybe plus or minus 50-60 containers in that on one train. So people who deal with business on containers, they just have to come to us, we'll transport them nicely for them. So container business is one of the huge markets that we actually do. Now, the other aspect, which is an average person can actually afford, is called the parcels business. In the parcels business, we actually take even letters, we take commodities up to about 250 kg. As an overnight service between Lobatse and Gaborone, every day except weekend. So that service is actually available to anyone, and it's very cheap. You know, what people don't understand is that some of the courier companies, they actually use us because of the advantage that you get from that service. And what I'm saying is that it's overnight, and more importantly, if you don't want to go to the station and drop a parcel, we can actually go and collect it at a minimum fee. You actually go and collect it from your place, get it to the station, and then take it on the other side to where it's required. So that service is available, and I think people need to know about it. I think that one is available to everyone as well. So I think those are the major things. But over and above that, you know, in railways is opportunities. For instance, we train our own people. We train our own drivers for the trains. We call them engine men. We do our own training for that. And that training, we don't outsource it. We do it ourselves. And in addition to that, we've got staff that is actually fixes or repairs wagons, that fixes and repairs the track, that repairs or maintain the locomotives themselves. And all those, we train them ourselves. You just get people with the prerequisite qualifications in the technical aspects, and you go and train them, because you can't get training for railways anywhere else. You get from that sector. So it's important that people should understand that. You've got a huge accounting department, which actually deal finance. So there's opportunity for financial people there. You know, you cannot run a company without HR. I mean, BR is big. So we've got a fully-fledged HR, whether it's training or whatever development of some sort, you know, or IR. industrial relations. So all those factors are actually the kind of service that we need in the organization. So I think people should understand that there's various disciplines in the railway sector, and we do lots of training, for those people. So they should not just think, railways, what do we do there? There's a lot of stuff that we do.
During the recent Botswana Railways Customer Day, you received some very candid feedback from those present, some of it complimentary and some not so positive. What were your thoughts on the feedback, especially the one that wasn't so complimentary?
Well, I expected that I'll get both positive and negative. But you see, the customer basically is the king. If they're not satisfied with something, the whole purpose was to tell us what they're not satisfied with. So it's like food for thought that we need to go and see what we can do about it. So I didn't take it personal in any way. I thought it was quite good, actually, to get some of the positive feedback, as well as not so good feedback. So that just basically says these are areas that we need to improve on, and I think that's exactly what we're going to do as management.
Anything in particular that stuck out from that day?
About 2 items, which to me is food for thought. One of them is the rates. They're worried about the tariffs that we charge them. So I think it's one of the issues that we really have to look at. What else can we do to make it better for them, to make sure that they can compete as well? Because we should understand they need to compete. But at the same time, it's also a challenge for us because we also need to cover our costs. And also we have to make sure that whatever we can make, we should not actually operate below the cost. The other issue that we're worried about is basically some of the inefficiencies. Like remember, they were talking about demurrage. Demurrage is when you charge a customer for giving him a wagon loaded and he doesn't take the goods out quickly enough. And they says no, part of that is because of Botswana Railways or because of us, because we don't, or maybe we have delivered the wagon late. Therefore, they had to get a stopgap somewhere. Therefore, they're not able to take the commodities as agreed. So it's an issue which basically has a cause and effect. So you might have to check whether we are the cause and do something about it.
During the media conference, some journalists raised questions about BR meeting its obligations, questioning some of the projects you have undertaken and some of the routes even. Where do you think this level of pessimism is coming from, and what is being done to address it?
I think there's a number of issues to me on the table. One, all the issues in the media, I strongly believe that they come from Botswana Railway employees. I strongly believe they come from us because we are the ones who know about them. So definitely the media will have access to our employees and they discuss those issues. And then maybe secondly, we have not been quite out there in the media telling them what we are doing, telling them what our achievements, telling them about where we have not done things right. I think that's basically they find that it's a very close session whereby they're not quite fully aware. So given a chance, they want to really know what is actually going on with the organization and maybe clarify some of the issues that they have. So our belief is that we need to engage them more going forward, maybe call them for a press conference or so, and just talk to them on the issues so that they feel more comfortable rather than try to avoid them. Because, okay, I put myself in their shoes. They need to know certain things so that they can publish them as well. So, but if you keep all the information away and they're not sure, they start now working on speculations. I think that was the major reason why.
Welcome back to First Issues. As the CEO of Botswana Railways, Dominic Ntwagaye, tells Botswana what the operations of the company actually are. You've gone public with regards to Botswana Railways recapitalizing. Can you tell us how long this project will take and what the expected output is?
Recapitalization, supposed to be an ongoing process, but where we were at was critical. A few years back, let's say around 2012, it was now critical that we had to do something. Why? Because our wagons were either getting too old or we're starting to have a shortage of some of them. So over a 5-year period, we decided that we have to do certain things right. And one of them was basically to, increase the wagons. That was the first thing that we wanted to do. So we have actually done that, and we're happy with it. We have actually bought 562 wagons, We had a total of about 1,000. So we have basically injected over 50% of our wagon fleet that we have. That is the first thing. And then secondly, we decided that we've got more wagons, then you have to increase the locomotive power as well. So we decided also that we should buy some locomotives. We've signed the contract for that. They should be coming in about 2 years' time, in around 2017. So that's when we expect them. Now the third thing is that we have to look also, not necessarily from parcels and freight, but also look at the passengers as well.
During our interview, the CEO was optimistic that the passenger train will soon be back and fully operational, reducing the stress and congestion experienced at bus stations all across the country, including at the Gaborone bus rank where we currently stand, and especially during public holidays. This would see places such as this Botswana Railways Gaborone train station waiting room that have been empty for years finally see some traffic.
We've looked at the passengers. We've decided to reintroduce the passenger train. And we believe that towards the end of this year, basically, or early next year, we should be having the train coming back. We're definitely that we're going to bring it by December. But in this particular case, we had a little bit of a challenge because the contractors, or the bidders, when we had the first tender out in December last year, 2014. Then some of them could not comply. So we had to actually go on selective tendering. And I'm happy to say that now we have awarded the contract for the supply and delivery of coaches. Now we're just finalizing the contract, and definitely the indications are that towards the end of the year, early next year, we should have our train running.
You say it was critical that you recapitalize. Can you give us the reasons why?
It was critical for a number of reasons. Just to give you one example, like sewer pen wagons that were carrying salt, they're actually corroded. They're actually dilapidated because they've been running for at least more than 20 years. So that was a major issue. And then they had frequent breakdown on section. So with that, our service to that customer was quite unreliable because of frequent breakdowns, and we could not actually give them the required number all the time. So we thought the best thing is just basically to buy him a new fleet and make sure that it works perfectly. And I'll say that he can attest that in this current year, since last year when the wagons arrived, he's been a happy customer. We are delivering his stuff on time, and we are delivering what he offers.
We'll continue our in-depth look into Botswana Railways operations next week. But for now, my co-presenter, Bonolo Moletsane, continues to share on special needs.
In the last episode of First Issues, we looked at the process involved in enabling early interventions and access to therapy for children born with disabilities, to become competent citizens of tomorrow and to be able to meaningfully contribute to the economic development of the country. This evening, we hear from Mr. Umpile Lakiba Dubi, a parent of 4 children who is married and resides in Gaborone. He attests to the effectiveness of early intervention and therapy for his young boy. This is what he said when we visited him.
When we took our son to Mariri Stimulation Center, he could not concentrate for an acceptable span of time, and also he could not show affection when you try to give him affection, try to hug him and stuff like that. And also he's non-verbal, and he didn't have any word to speak. We sent him in May this year, 2015, and after a period of 2 months, he has started to show some signs of progress. One, when you call him, he does respond and show that he understands now that is his name. And also, when you hug him, he responds. When you ask for a high five, he will respond. When you sit him to watch something or to do something, to do homework, like coloring, he sits down for quite a bit of time and be able to do things.
Dr. Babe Gaolebale takes us through her 4-year-old son's progress since being enrolled at the center in 2013. She conveys to us on the positive outcomes of seeing how Theo engages with his older brother and other children since starting therapy.
I've seen a great improvement. When he started, he had very few words, like maybe 2 words, mom and dad. But right now he's able to even ask for things, adding about 3 words. He's able to interact with his brother. He's able to, there are a lot of things that he's done in terms from a behavior point of view. He's able to stay calmer for a long time because there is kind of structure that he has at school. He's able to share with friends. He's able to, to wait for his turn, because those were some of the things that he was not able to do before he started. He has cousins, and it was very hard to even just visit the cousins. But nowadays you can see him, he can sit next to them, give them a hug, smile, play with them and share toys with them, which is just awesome.
Our guest shares with us that since her son's birth in Ireland, her and her husband were enabled free access to early therapy for their son's post-diagnosis whilst residing in Ireland.
We lived in Ireland for about 15 years, but Theo was born in 2008. So he was diagnosed at about 18 months to 2 years. And the reason it was picked, apart from us being medics as parents, in Ireland, they actually put a lot of emphasis on children with disabilities, that they should be picked up early in the community. So they've set up groups in different communities, early intervention teams they call them. And the early intervention team comprises of an occupational therapist, a physiotherapist, a psychologist, a pediatrician, and also a speech and language therapist, to make sure that when these kids are picked up, maybe at an audiology screening for a hearing test, they're then sent to the relevant centers. They're given the right intervention at that particular time while they're still young.
Welcome back to First Issues. We have heard from Mr. Badubi on how early access to therapy will catalyze his son's ability to reach his optimum potential. Dr. Haulebale attests on the progression of her son since accessing therapy. Despite the good news, parents share a common determination of wanting their children to access services, as well as see such opportunity availed to the general public. They say currently, access is limited by how expensive the services are. For our viewers to have an appreciation of the costs, we hear from Kutlolo Mariri.
Minimum, we're talking about 146,000. We are only talking about therapy services, not even medical expenses. It can go to up to 200 and something thousand annually. So they still have to pay for things like occupational therapy, physiotherapy, and in some instances actually, the parent has to purchase assistive devices like walking frame, like hearing aids, like the wheelchairs, so that we can continue to improve the quality of life of the child. In some instances, for example, we are not yet specialized in fitting children hearing aids. As such, when a child has got hearing loss and they have been confirmed, because normally we refer to South Africa for that hearing assessment, and it costs about 10,000 to do the assessment in South Africa. And for one child recently, they fitted hearing aids worth about 35,000. And a good wheelchair that is actually electronic wheelchair will cost around about 20,000, a good one. So, because sometimes they have to be custom made. One of the parents actually had to order things from America. So it's one of those things that you realize that really therapy is expensive. And mind you, not only do these kids need therapy, they also need medical intervention. Some of them, they still go to South Africa for pediatric assessments where they get routine medication and they have to be kept on close monitoring.
Mrs. Tato Isaac attests to seeing progress with her 4-year-old's ability to speak since enrolling for a term, even though sustaining him at school will be difficult moving forward due to financial constraints.
So far, I'm so impressed. I am so impressed for the 3 months that he has been here, that there's been progress. It's like he's slowly snapping out of the silence that he has been in. But since it was just for a short while, I could only afford the school fees for this term only. He has to so that I can go and regroup myself. The school fees is a bit steep, and we also have to provide, in addition to the school fees, the stationery and the toiletry. And for a special need kid, it's a lot, because you never know what happens in your absence. So we have to provide that in addition to the school fees.
Our guests this evening unpack the interventions they would like to see.
It would be nice for each and every Motswana to be able to access the services.
My belief as a parent is that the government has to come up with a very comprehensive policy for caring for kids with disabilities, such as for my kid. When I talk about policy, I'm referring to policy regarding early infant diagnosis of such conditions, because that is key to me.
No ordinary Motswana can actually afford the services, because you are thinking of, you have occupational therapist, but it's not available there. You have to source it outside the center. That is why we really want a center that has everything in terms of occupational speech and language therapy, so that the kids can actually have the services at the one place.
And the policy, I also believe, should even cover the financing of such conditions.
In the United States, it was the parents. The parents went to the government officials and said, we must have these services for our children. Autism around the world has increased triple, quadruple, and parents said, we must have. They went to legislators, they went to government officials and said, our children need these services.
A special thank you to those parents who agreed to be interviewed, advocating for the general public to have enabled early access to therapy and interventions for children born with disabilities in Botswana. This may save a future generation whose optimum potential can be reached with appropriate and early access to such services. From myself, Bonolo Moletsani, the rest of the First Issues crew, our esteemed sponsor First National Bank, we wish you a pleasant viewing and a wonderful evening.